guys, it's Ollie with Rick for Dirt with Frank, and we're joined by
Travis Mason with the Front Country Ranger District of the San Bernardino National Forest.
And today we're about to go into Lytle Creek and do our part with Treadlightly.
Our projects today involve Stockton Flats. We're doing some cleanups in the Coldwater Canyon, going up to Paiute Canyon, and enjoying the day here in the Lytle Creek area.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
Looking forward to having some fun and learning some cool stuff while we're down here.
I can't see myself with anyone else.
Hey Frank,
Hey.
we're here on 306A here in Lytle Creek Canyon. I wanted to show you what we have going on. Our team member Steve has lined out a path coming off of 306. You can see the pink flagging. Here what we're going to do is put this T-post into the ground and be able to help people navigate across this creek bed. And you can see that going all the way across to where the road hits the natural.
Oh yeah, it makes a line straight through.
Absolutely.
Right, all from there down to there.
And so part of the event today is putting this in so the recreator and the user knows where they can go.
So we're effectively creating these landmarks so they can basically say these little minor waypoints, right?
Absolutely.
Saying from here to here to here to here, this is the proper route.
Absolutely.
Very cool. I like that. And this is basically step one.
This is step
right,
one.
To start creating a process where people can easily route. I'm guessing the next one will be probably signage.
Yep.
And some additional features, right?
Yep. So we have the crew working above us, and what we're doing behind that crew is setting up the project as we come down. And the last bit of that is putting a sign here at the junction so people know where to go and explore Coldwater Canyon.
Fantastic.
Everything I used to be seems to have disappeared so fast. Like time is playing tricks on me. Like my present now is my past. So lost and unfamiliar.
So right now we're heading up to the next group, which is doing some work on some of the posts and some of the yellow post sites, a little rehab, painting them, relocating them, and basically making it look better and more usable so people know the right place where they're supposed to be. And then picking up trash. And in general, helping keep Lytle Creek, keep it open, keep people having fun, and sharing the stoke and a little bit of education so we can keep it going. This here, what you were telling me is that this used to be a berm that was meant to basically close this off and prevent traffic from going up this
Correct.
Unauthorized trail.
Correct.
And over time, it is what it is now. We see what we see now, which
Yep.
is the eroded, essentially a speed bump.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we were to hike up, you would see another berm further up, just a little ways. That was the original height of what this berm was. This berm was probably
Wow.
6 to 8 feet.
Oh wow.
When it was put in.
So it's a serious berm.
It's
Like,
a serious.
it was a serious height.
There was no. I mean, we do these type of things so that people know that this is not a route.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about like 2 feet now.
Yeah. Easily with the capability of the rigs that we have these
Yeah.
days, it's super easy to roll over.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I can see where you guys used to have the berm, obviously where there isn't any traffic.
Right.
And then I do know the trail goes up there
Yeah.
quite a ways, which is, yeah, I would have never guessed that this is not a legal trail, which is why that map is obviously so handy,
Exactly.
right, to have, and why it's so important to kind of do the research. And a lot of times, a lot of us kind of go, we assume that if it's a heavily traveled route, that it's authorized because, you know, we kind of take that for granted.
Right.
Right? That we're not, in our minds, we are doing the right thing because we're visiting something that's previously disturbed. We're not creating this trail. It's already there, right? And that's the mistake or the assumption that we make,
Right.
right? In
Yeah.
doing that. And really what we're doing is we're perpetuating the problem, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah,
And
without even knowing it.
it's not your fault.
Right,
You know, It's
exactly.
not your fault. But that is why we have a Know Before You Go campaign with the Forest Service. All of our maps are online and they're free to the public so people will know. So one thing on National Forest lands is that if this is not signed,
Yeah.
it's not a route.
Right.
You will see as we've gone through when we stopped at 306A and crossed, there's a sign there to
That's true.
designate that as a trail.
When we were down crossing where one of the other guys is putting up cairns, right?
Yep.
And basically trying to mark the trail that we were talking about earlier, at that intersection, you have it very clearly marked off that
As
this
a
is
road.
this is the beginning of this route, and this one continues this way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So if you don't see something here,
if you don't see a sign saying, hey,
yeah,
this road, it goes here, the name of the road going up there.
that's a good rule to kind
Yeah.
of just to know that if you don't see a sign, it's probably not a legitimate road.
Exactly.
And that's something that I didn't even know that. I assumed that, unfortunately, given that I think the limited resources and kind of the assumption that we take for granted, or what we take for granted on these trails, is that the sign maybe was there.
Right.
And it's been damaged or it's gone, right? But maybe the assumption we should make is go a step further than that and say, well, maybe it isn't gone,
Right.
and there just never was one, and that's not a road.
And getting our motor vehicle use map.
Right.
And that helps answer those
right.
questions.
Where can someone get that motor vehicle use map?
You can
if they're-
download it free on Venza, or go to the San Bernardino National Forest website, or any national forest will have those maps for free to download.
Awesome.
A lot of our field staff carry those maps, so you can always ask.
I can say this thing looks like it's like trying to move a building.
Yeah.
Like this is heavy.
For the purpose that Frank's showing is
This
that
is like pushing a car.
and you can see people, use this as a backdrop for shooting and everything you can imagine.
Yeah.
That's another reason why we build this gate as stout it is, because it's out here, it's remote, it needs to have a survivability.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, it's impressive. So,
It's heavy.
yeah, it's really heavy. And then being at like in excess of like 5,500 feet didn't help.
Yeah, right. And then we put this rock right here so people wouldn't go up and over.
So you guys placed that.
Yeah.
Wow. And again, this is something that like the off-road community should understand, is that the gates aren't here as an obstacle. You're not supposed to go around them. Like, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
And if the gate is there, it's for a reason. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So we have been in the Lytle Creek area. This is effectively the edge of your boundary,
Right.
right, so to speak. And then I guess a little ways up begins Angeles,
The Angeles National Forest.
the Angeles
Yes.
National Forest. Yeah. And so this is kind of the edge of what your office is responsible for.
The most western edge.
The most western edge, and then from here it goes all the way out to Banning.
The city of Banning, yeah.
which is quite a ways.
And the Morongo Indian Reservation.
Wow.
That whole area, we have the San Gorgonio Wilderness.
Yeah.
That's part of our district. Yeah.
Wow. Let's get it. Let me ask you about that a little bit. What's the distinction between national forest and wilderness?
So, great question. I get that a lot from off-roaders.
Yeah.
Wilderness is basically we're visitors into the land.
Okay.
It's a place for tranquility, non-trembling. I like to say it's either 2 legs or 4 legs. Either
Okay.
you're hiking in, or you're bringing pack stock in.
Okay.
And it's kind of the
So
that
non-motorized-
non-motorized, non-mechanized.
Non-mechanized. So that means no bikes,
No bikes.
right? No e-bikes, no bikes, no vehicles. Like you
Right.
said, nothing with a motor. It's
Nothing
all
with a motor.
human powered by your 2 feet, or like you said,
The 4 feet
the
with
4
the horse.
feet with
yeah.
the horse. Yeah.
So
Wow.
we here on the Front Country Ranger District, we have 2 wildernesses.
Oh.
We have the Cucamonga Wilderness, which we face at camp to the west.
Okay.
And then we have the San Gorgonio Wilderness. Both of those wildernesses were written into the original Wilderness Act of 1964. And that
Okay.
is where we started the wilderness movement.
Wow. And so that is essentially done to say, it's like you said, right? To kind of, there's access, and then it limits the accessibility to a degree to preserve the wilderness of it.
Absolutely. You know,
Right.
for all the plants, the animals,
Right.
where they have a sanctuary. And
Yeah.
like I said before, that we are the visitor to.
Right, right. That's interesting, because
Yeah.
I that's always been kind of a common question, like what's the distinction between national forest and wilderness? And I'm sure there's a reason, but most of us don't bother to look
Right.
into it, right? We're just kind of like, eh.
Well, let me answer that.
Yeah.
So wilderness of the Forest Service, wilderness of Bureau of Land Management,
Yeah.
of the Park Service and Fish and Wildlife Service are all the same.
Oh, really?
Those are the 4 main federally land managed agencies,
Yeah.
and in the 1964 Act, that all came together.
So if it's designated as wilderness,
Wilderness.
it's all the same.
Federally
The
designated
way that you
wilderness.
treat it would be
Yes.
the same.
Yep.
Wow.
So, we go to Checkwalla Wilderness out in the BLM, or
Yeah.
some of those places out there. right? You know,
Yeah.
that wilderness is the same as the Cucamonga Wilderness.
And on the maps, it will say wilderness. It'll have the name with wilderness on it.
Absolutely,
And
and
that is the designation. So when you see it says this is a box marked as national forest, and there's another box marked as wilderness, that's exactly what it's delineating.
Absolutely, and for Forest Service wilderness, it's a darker green.
Right.
You know, regular Forest Service land is a light green, and wilderness is dark green.
That's one thing that's good to note, is that I think everything on the map has a purpose.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everything. It's not just a different color because someone felt like making it a different
Just
color.
because we had a whole bunch of Crayolas. Yeah.
Everything is absolutely has a purpose, and there is different regulation or rules around that.
Yeah.
So the group is showing up now. They're going to do some work, hopefully, on this gate, and we'll get some of that action happening. I have one last question for you, since we're on the topic of national forest versus wilderness, is drones.
Okay.
Because obviously they're hugely popular
Very
in the
much
off-road community. Everyone wants to get memories or clips of themselves having a good time, right? And so, can you fly a drone in national forest?
You can fly a drone in national forest, but we recommend that you go to the website and learn about the rules and regulations.
There are
of that.
rules and
Yes.
things that you have to follow
Yes.
specifically for this area, but you can do it as long as you're within those rules.
Correct.
How about wilderness?
No.
So
Wilderness, because it's mechanized.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
I was on a mission, I was on a plane.
Painting pretty little poles right here. Just friendly little poles. All in white, fluffy little white.
This is my transmission, I know I sounded insane. Please just listen. Pick me up, hold it down. Baby, just don't pick me up, hold it down.
All right. So we've made our way back down to the crossing at the wash, right? So we're at the intersection of 306 and 306A.
Yes.
Right? And that you've got the team doing some pretty cool work here because we've got all the vehicles set up. And what are they working on right now for you guys?
As you can see behind us here, the road is getting basically access. It's causing damage to the roadbed with traffic coming in and out. The users have created a new route, which is more effective. So we're going to have them move existing boulders and rocks into place to hopefully block off access, so we can redirect folks more appropriate route into 306A.
Got it. And so in that process, that means relocating some of the signage?
Yes, we're going to relocate the existing signage just down below us to the next intersection. We're going to relocate these boulders, and I'll come up at a later time.
I'm your man from time to time. So alone, you're my high, and your ways behind my back. Make 'em burn, make 'em cry. Tell them that you said it's my goal.
All right, so we're up here with Steve. Steve, I was going to say what peak or canyon we're at the top of, but I don't know. So you're going to have to tell me. Where are we?
We are technically on the lower Lytle Creek Divide off of Forest Road 3 and 31. It's going to be the southern end of Lytle Creek area, just below the South Fork and Middle Fork areas.
Very cool. And we're standing in this area that is not a trail or a road.
Correct. It's not a street legal route, not open to motorized vehicles.
Which is why we hiked up here.
Yes. This area was created during the South Fire, which happened just recently, just south of us here. It was a contingency dozer line just to prevent the fire from jumping into Lytle Creek or the neighboring communities.
And so they basically, I mean, as he said, a dozer line, and we'll get some video footage later to show you guys. You'll see it is pretty steep to get up here.
Yes,
like the line these dozers take is actually pretty impressive. I didn't think a bulldozer could handle that kind of a incline.
They'll almost go up straight up or down a wall. I mean, they're pretty. It's pretty interesting to watch, and it's definitely an e-ticket ride, I think.
And so
riding
this
one
is
of
like a wide enough area where the fire crews can get some protection, maybe like if it gets to this point, they can kind of make a stand, I guess, here, right?
Yeah,
And
they'll
keep it-
incorporate dozer line with the aircraft, with the fire retardant or water drops.
Yeah.
Along this, they may buffer it with hand line as well.
Yeah.
Just to give that fire, so if it comes up this hill,
Yeah.
it has a good stopping point or a good anchor point for the
place
crew
to slow it
stop
down, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. And so you can see how like it would. I mean, it really does look like a road. Like a lot of
Yes.
off-road trails, it's about the same width.
Yes.
Right. It looks. I can see how, and it's this particular section is not so steep that you wouldn't want to do it. Like it actually, it's very doable.
It looks
so
a
I can
little-
see why it's enticing to people.
Yes, it looks very inviting. and
Right.
it's just
But Travis mentioned something earlier to us, which actually this plays perfectly into, which is if there is not a sign at
Mm-hmm.
the intersection, it's not an authorized route.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Which at the bottom of this one, there is no signpost.
There is no sign.
Right, where you see an intersection happening.
With the Forest Service, every road or trail has to be signed to make it a legal designated route. So anything that doesn't have a sign is not a designated motor vehicle use trail, road, etc.
And so you came up here a few minutes ago, just before we got here with the crew.
Yes.
Some of our volunteers, and you guys basically put up fencing.
Yes.
And you put up some material that was already available here.
Yeah, from when they did the fire suppression work, we pulled in some slash the hillside, just installed a few T-posts and wire, just as a visual deterrent, just to make it a little less inviting to folks that may want to come up here. You know, they're more than welcome to hike up here and mountain bike. We're just going to try to keep the motor vehicle use.
Oh, okay, so they can hike and they can just like we did.
Yeah,
they can hike up here. You just don't want motor vehicles
Right,
up
it's
here.
to be because there's a lot less impact with foot traffic and the mountain bikes or non-motorized.
Right,
than
and
there
then
is
you
with
were
motorized.
showing us something interesting that right across from us, and I don't know if you guys will catch this in the video, but right across from us is basically the same thing from a previous threat, a previous fire threat.
Yes.
How old is that one?
That dozer line was done after the Blue Cut fire in 2016. We did some rehab work on the bottom where we promoted the regrowth, limited access, thus allowing it to get to the stage where it's in now. But 6 years later,
It's grown in pretty
Yeah,
well.
and
It's got a
it's,
nice green line going through. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
so it's almost back to its natural state.
So that's what you hope happens
Yes.
here.
Yeah, we want to get it back to as much to its natural state as we possibly can.
Very cool. Thank you.
Oh, no, please.
So Travis, we're hanging out in what I think for all intents and purposes for most people coming through here, it looks like a dry riverbed.
Yeah.
Right? Like there you see this and you don't think much more than that, right? It's just kind of like barren land. It's a place from get to point A to point B.
Right.
Pretty much, right? But there's a lot more to it than what's here, and I'd like to dig into that. But first I want to talk about why this place became important in the first place and why it is
No
a
problem.
national forest.
Well, thank you for that question. So the San Bernardino National Forest was formed, in the mid 1920s, and it was formed because of protection of watershed. What makes where we're standing on so important is that there's water underneath this ground, just a foot, 2 or so, and that's feeding the communities downstream.
So it's not deep at all. A
No.
foot or two.
A foot or two, depending on where we're at.
Wow.
That water's flowing underneath us. And
crazy.
when we have these big monsoonal rains, in Southern California, we get these rains, this will go bank to bank in a hurry. And it's pretty impressive to see that water flow. If we had a rain on snow event, all that is here. But that groundwater that you were talking about, why we should care, it's only a couple feet below us.
Wow.
And that's helping out those communities of Rialto and Fontana and Rancho Cucamonga.
So it's not an insignificant amount of water we're talking about.
No, it is not. It's absolutely not. And I can't remember the gallons offhand, so you'll edit that. But
But it's enough that they rely on
it
water
supplies
coming in.
close to 80% of their water downstream in those communities.
That's significant.
Yes.
I mean, a lot more than I would have expected, especially being so shallow underground. I can see why you'd want to protect it because the vehicles being over it obviously will probably impact that, right?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we have breakdowns and we have fluids leaching into this area. Trash, all that stuff impacts the stuff because it's so close to the ground.
Right.
It's going to leach in there and it will affect that water quality.
And that leads us to the next point of some of the work that was done here today, which is and I am guilty of not knowing this, you're actually not supposed to drive in this watershed.
Right, that's correct. We try to do our crossings at 90 degrees, so it's a less impact to the watershed. When things flow from those rains I spoke before, it just washes away again, and then we start anew. But we don't want to be driving in the wash. You see us here in the wash right now because of the road that goes to Coldwater Canyon that we worked on before. But anything up Canyon, we don't want people in that wash.
Gotcha. Let's take a look up here and we'll see what else is going on. So some of the work that we did was also helping with that guidance of people, right? By establishing these kerns and putting these kind of temporary guides, right? To guide traffic in the flow that it's moving, and also guiding them off of this road here.
So what we didn't want, the reason why we were working on this turn is we don't want this erosion to happen, grow anymore. We want to keep it as close to a normal road prism as possible. The cairns are super important because they delineate the road to get across to Coldwater.
At 90 degrees.
At 90 degrees. Right, yeah, thank you, at 90 degrees. And then you'll see that we actually T-posted in T-post with that white blaze that's going to help that navigation. Earlier today we saw the flagging that we put down, and now your crew was able to put that in for us. All to be able to protect this watershed so we could keep the trails open.
That's pretty cool. So one of the things that I do want to hit home before we wrap all of this up is before we teamed up with Treadlightly and with you guys to do these projects and talk about the watershed and why it's important to stay on the trail and respect the land. I also want to mention that even though we're the ones doing it this time, there's a lot of other groups that come out here and do it, and your group, if you have one, an off-road club, even a loose gathering of friends, right?
Exactly.
Right, like you can get in touch with you guys and you can make something happen.
Absolutely, you can come to your local Forest Service office, and they'll be more than happy to help you out.
Because you guys need the help.
We desperately need the help. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you said it was 5 guys.
5 guys
that manage 200,000+ acres.
270,000 acres.
Yeah.
And from this shot, we see the other side of the district there in the distance.
That's the other side.
That's the other side. That's Mount San Gorgonio in the San Gorgonio Wilderness.
Wow.
And that takes us an hour or so, depending on traffic, right?
Right.
It takes us an hour to get over there, so we welcome the help.
Yeah. So check out their website. You can we also talked briefly about adopting trails.
Yes.
And how I always pictured that being a more complicated process, but it's actually not.
No, it's great. I would ask, most clubs have a conservation director. They would contact the Forest Service, contact myself, and we'll work out the project schedule, fill out a volunteer form, and you guys are out there helping us out.
Yeah, and I think you only ask for a commitment of maybe a couple of days a year.
A couple days a year.
Nothing.
Nothing, and you're out here all the time.
Right,
so.
For the fun that you're having, and this is the way that we look at it at Rig for Dirt, and why, again, that sounds like a broken record, but why it works so well for us to work with Travis and his team and with Treadlightly is that we look at it as we're out here all the time using not just this land, but land all over the state and all over the country for that matter. It doesn't cost us a whole lot to give back a little bit of time for the amount of use that we're getting out of this, It's probably less than 10%, but the dividends are huge.
Oh, yeah. And then you bring out your kiddos, and we're teaching the future off-roaders.
Passing it on, right? Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Travis.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.